All right, everybody, so we have lesson 25. The title is Solving Equations with Fractional and Negative Exponents. That's a lot of stuff in the title, but that's what we're going to do here in just a couple of minutes. In the background, and I'm also wearing a green shirt, so this is exciting, we have the forecast. I feel like a weatherman. This is great. But I just want to point out that we're almost pushing 90 degrees today, and then take a look at what's coming here on Sunday. A low of, do this the opposite, a low of 47. That's ridiculous. We could probably turn this into an average rate of change question. Remember average rate of change? Change in Y over change in X? We could probably figure out the average rate of change of temperature over these last few days, but we're not gonna. Instead, we are going to solve equations with fractional and negative exponents in them. And we're going to do that here in just a second. I have to get out of this green shirt because I'm in the forecast and I really shouldn't be. All right, we're back. No more green shirts. Now you can see me a little better. No more forecast in the background. In the background right now, though, I had to show you this picture right here. So I went out and bought all of this fencing and put it all around the yard, thought for sure I had Copper under control. He got out. Look what he did. He ate a hole through the wooden fence and got out. And this is where he got out. He's unbelievable. I can't control the guy. I just can't stop him. Anyways, let's do our first example of an equation that has fractional and negative exponents in it. So we're going to solve this equation right here. And if you notice, it's x raised to the 3 halves. I'm going to show you how we solve this. It's actually not that bad. So we're going to start solving it the same way we solve all equations. We're trying to get x by itself. So the first thing we want to do is undo the subtraction right here by adding the 1 over to the other side. And we get x to the 3 halves equals 8. Now, here is the part that's new. I need to try to get rid of the 3 halves exponent. Now remember what 3 halves means. Raising to the 3 halves means that we are actually square rooting, because that's what the 2 in the bottom tells us, and the 3 tells us that we're actually raising it to the 3rd power. So this is really an x raised to the 1/2 and to the 3rd. So it's really a square root and something being raised to the 3rd power. Well, the opposite of both of those, so the opposite of square rooting is to square, and the opposite of raising something to the 3rd power is to 3rd root it or cube root it. So to complete that and make this work, what we're going to do is we're going to take this side and we are going to take x to the 3 halves and raise it to the 2/3. Because that's going to be the complete opposite of both. And that's how we undo equations. We always perform the opposite operation. So this 3 right here in the denominator is going to be a cube root, which is going to cancel out cubing. This 2 right here is going to square it, which is going to undo the square rooting part. So they're going to just undo each other. All right? Well, how does this help us? Well, remember the rules. When we raise an exponent to an exponent, the rule is we multiply. Well, what happens when I multiply 3 halves times 2/3? 3 halves times 2/3. That gives me 6 over 6, which is really 1. So that turns this into an x to the 1st power, or just an x. So it helps us get x by itself. Now remember, whatever you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other. So if I raised that side to the 2/3, I must also raise 8 to the 2/3 as well. So now this brings us back to what we did in the last lesson. How do I raise 8 to the 2/3? Well, that's the same as taking 8 and raising it to the 1/3 and then squaring it. 8 to the 1/3 power means I'm cube rooting 8. The cube root of 8 is 2, and then 2 to the 2nd power is 4. So this all turns into a 4 right here. Now again, like I've said before, you can certainly take your calculator and raise 8 to the 2/3 and you'll get 4, and that's okay. But again, I'm just trying to get you to understand the concept of fractional exponents. So, final answer here, x equals 4. If you wanted to check it, you could plug this 4 back in for x right here. raise 4 to the 3/2, subtract 1, you would see that you would get an answer of 7. So there's our first example. Going to do another one. All right, so here's our second example. It's x to the 4/3 plus 2 equals 18. Before I do this example, I just want to show you a quick little video clip. This is one of Copper's first time ever seeing snow. Because you got to remember, Copper was from Mississippi. I don't know if you guys remember me telling you that story, but that's where we adopted him from. We adopted him at the Chemung County Animal Shelter, but he came from Mississippi. So he had never seen snow before, and here's a just quick video clip of him being excited about snow.
Looks like a bunny pancake.
Hope you enjoyed that. All right, so here is the next equation. So again, we're trying to get x by itself. So if you want to try it on your own, you can pause the video. Otherwise, I'm just going to go right through it. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, and that's going to give me x to the 4/3 equals 16. Now to get rid of the 4/3, I'm going to do the opposite of 4/3. Now remember, 4/3 means I'm taking the cube root of x, but I'm also raising it to the 4th power. The opposite of that is to cube it and take the 4th root. That's the opposites. So I'm going to raise this x to the 4/3 to the 3/4 power, because that's going to undo this, and this is going to undo this. All right, and remember, whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. So I'm going to raise the 16 to the 3/4 as well. Multiplying those two together, power raised to a power, those are going to wipe out and just leave me with an x. And then I just got to figure out what 16 to the 3/4 is. 16 to the 3/4 can be accomplished by doing 16 to the 1/4 to the 3rd. The 4th root of 16, you can do it on your calculator if you want. It's what number multiplied by itself 4 times gives me 16. The answer is going to be 2. That's going to turn into a 2. And then 2 to the 3rd power is going to give me 8. So 8 is going to be my final answer right there. If I plug 8 back in right there, raise it to the 4/3, add 2, I should get 18. All right, going to do one more. All right, so this last one has a negative exponent in it in addition to the fractional exponent. So I'll show you how we handle that. Like all the others, first thing I got to do, I'm trying to get x by itself, so I want to subtract this 5. And that's going to give me 2x to the negative 1/4 equals 1. I got to make sure I have x by itself, and right now there's a 2 out in front, so I need to make sure I get rid of that 2 first. So if you see a number out in front of your x, before you try to raise both sides to your fractional exponent, you want to first get that number out of there. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 first. That's going to give me x to the negative 1/4 equals 1/2. Now, to get rid of x to the negative 1/4, all right, imagine if it was just 1/4. If it was just 1/4, I would raise both sides to the 4 over 1 power, because they're opposites of each other. But it's negative 1/4. So all I have to do to accommodate that is I need to just raise both sides to the negative 4 over 1 power. That's all. So I'm going to raise both sides to the negative 4 over 1 power. And that's going to eliminate these, because if I multiply those together, they're going to turn into just a positive 1. And I get just an x here. Now this is kind of complicated. Taking a half and raising it to the negative 4th is a little tricky. I would encourage you to just do that on your calculator. Take your calculator, use your fraction button, take a half, raise it to the negative 1/4. All right. If you wanted me to show you that real quick, I will. So I would take your fraction button, go at alpha F1, grab a fraction. We're looking at 1/2, so 1 over 2. And then we want to raise that fraction to another fraction, and we're going to raise it to the negative 4 over 1, or just the negative 4 is fine, but either way, you get 16. All right, so there's the calculator work. So the final answer here is 16. So if you're dealing with a negative in the exponent, just use a negative when you're using this fraction right here. And they're going to balance or cancel each other out because a negative times a negative is a positive. This right here, negative 1/4 to the negative 4/1 is going to turn into x to the first power, or just an x. All right. So that's the only thing that's tricky here, is making sure that you get rid of this 2 and then raise it to the negative 4/1 when you're done. All right. Got homework? Let me know if you have questions.